Have you ever imagined what it would be like to witness a gigantic structure, the size of a football field, floating above our heads without falling? And all this happening for more than 20 years? It sounds like something out of science fiction, doesn't it? But the truth is that the International Space Station is there, orbiting the Earth at an altitude of about 400 kilometers, as if it were magically suspended in space. What if I told you that, in reality, it is falling all the time? Well, many people are shocked to learn this. After all, how can a piece of equipment that is more than 100 meters long, full of modules, laboratories, and full of astronauts, fall and not fall at the same time? It may seem confusing, but this mystery has everything to do with the laws of physics, the genius of Isaac Newton, and, of course, constant adjustments in position that give the station a little help to keep floating. Stay with me until the end of this video, because we are going to delve deeper into this subject and you'll understand how it all works, and maybe even feel a little butterflies in your stomach when you realize that, without these adjustments, the ISS would end up falling from up there. To unravel this technological miracle, we need to start with the story of Newton and his legendary apple. They say that it was when he saw the fruit fall that the physicist asked himself, why does something fall? And is there a way for an object to keep falling forever without ever reaching the ground? That's where the idea of gravity came from and, later, the cannonball analogy. If you fire a bullet straight up into the air, it will fall back down because of gravity, right? But if you fire that same bullet horizontally, at a very high speed and in a place where the air is thin, like the top of a very high mountain, the bullet could, theoretically, follow the curvature of the Earth, fall in the direction of that curvature, but never touch the ground. This is exactly what happens with the International Space Station. It is always falling, but the speed it develops, combined with the Earth's orbit, means that it never actually reaches our planet. We can call this centripetal force, which keeps the ISS in a constant but perfectly balanced fall. Now, you must be wondering, but if the station doesn't touch the ground, why do we have to worry about it falling? The big trick is that, even though it is 400 kilometers above sea level, the ISS still suffers drag from the atmosphere, despite it being very thin in this region called the thermosphere. This friction ends up slowing the station down little by little, causing it to lose about 100 meters of altitude every day. It's just a little, but over time it can become a big problem. Have you ever thought how scary it would be if, suddenly, without any control, this gigantic structure started to get too close to the Earth's surface? Even if a large part of it burned up upon re-entry, the chance of causing damage and scares would be huge. And that is why space agencies periodically fire engines and thrusters to raise the station again to the correct height, ensuring that it returns to orbit around 400 kilometers. This procedure, known as reboost, is essential for the ISS to continue its scientific mission without plummeting towards our planet. Although it may seem obvious now, this process of keeping the ISS in orbit requires extremely complex calculations that take into account speed, air resistance, and the curve of the Earth. Just imagine the work. If it were higher, the speed needed to maintain the ideal orbit would be lower. If it were closer to the surface, the drag would be greater and it would need to move faster to avoid re-entry. The station travels at an impressive 7.6 kilometers per second, adjusting everything to remain perfectly synchronized with the Earth's rotation. And, while it does this, it serves as a true space laboratory where astronauts from several countries study engineering, physics, biology, radiation, and various phenomena that are impossible to reproduce with the same precision down here. In other words, each small adjustment to the orbit is not just a trick to keep it flying, but also an essential investment in science, which helps us better understand our universe. However, even with all this work, we cannot forget that the station is not eternal. The ISS has been in operation for over 25 years, and some parts were launched in 1998, such as the Zarya module. This means that the technology that keeps it in operation has been subjected to the most extreme conditions possible: intense radiation, sudden temperature changes, micro-impacts from space debris, and so on. Over time, the structure begins to show signs of wear, creaking, small cracks, and all sorts of problems that any machine suffers as it ages, even more so under the extreme conditions of space. The fear that hangs in the air is, what if, one day, we simply can no longer do these reboosts? What if, due to some failure or malfunction, the ISS starts to fall out of control? This is the kind of doubt that haunts engineers and scientists, because a mistake here could mean a gigantic disaster down below. That's why NASA and other space agencies are already planning for the future. Sometime in the next decade, the International Space Station will be retired. It can't just be abandoned. It would be extremely risky to leave a white elephant that's 100 meters long, 73 meters tall, and has tons of equipment in orbit, subject to failure and natural wear and tear. So the plan is to carefully deorbit it. But how can this be done without creating a global panic and without risking gigantic pieces falling on inhabited regions? The strategy, in short, is a space tug will dock with the ISS, patiently wait for the altitude to drop from 400 kilometers to 220 kilometers, and then use its engines to direct the station towards a remote stretch of the Pacific Ocean nicknamed the Spacecraft Graveyard. That's where the ISS, and other gigantic ships before it, will end their days, burning up in the mesosphere and later sinking into waters far from any civilization. This whole story may sound a little scary, right? After all, we are talking about a gigantic structure flying above our heads, which depends on constant maintenance to keep from falling. But it is also fascinating to see how humanity managed to create something so grand, bringing together scientists from all over the world to study phenomena that may one day help us colonize other planets or better understand our surroundings. The ISS is, at the same time, a great technological pride and a constant challenge. It needs to be monitored, calculated, predicted problems, develop solutions, and all this so that it can continue to revolve around the globe as a symbol of cooperation and advanced engineering. In the end, it is almost poetic to think that the station is falling in an incessant ballet with the Earth, but it does not reach us thanks to the precision of the impulses that put it back in the right place. If we stop to think, this journey of the ISS also makes us question our own condition down here. The same gravity that keeps our feet on the ground is the force that pulls the station at all times and, paradoxically, is the same force that helps it stay in orbit, as long as it is combined with the right speed. This shows how knowledge and planning can transform a fearful scenario. After all, who would want a space station crashing into their backyard? Into a fundamental scientific tool for advances in medicine, engineering, astronomy, and so many other areas. Each experiment carried out up there is a step forward in understanding our universe and in the development of technologies that could improve our lives on Earth or, who knows, help us live far from it one day. However, we cannot ignore the risks. As long as the ISS is there, There will always be the fear of a possible unexpected collapse or a breakdown that will cause everything to fall apart. That is why scientists and engineers work tirelessly on maintenance, inspections, and improvements, always alert to creaks and possible cracks that may appear. The future, however, is already set. At some point, the station will be deactivated, and the fear of an uncontrolled fall will be replaced by a careful assisted suicide in the middle of the ocean. Until then, we can continue exploring this incredible laboratory, which reveals secrets of space and brings us ever closer to a dream that has lasted for millennia, that of flying through the cosmos, expanding frontiers that previously seemed unattainable. So, what do you think of all this? Did you get a chill down your spine just imagining the International Space Station plummeting towards Earth? Tell us in the comments what you think about the future of this gigantic space laboratory and what surprises or scares you the most about this story. I would love to hear your opinion. And, of course, if you like this content and want to continue following more curiosities about space exploration and other intriguing science topics, leave your like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any new videos. Thank you very much for your company and see you next time.